Hey everyone, this is Devin, aka Leonard Meltzner, and not Victoria, today, coming to you with my very special voice for the 15th episode of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Now, it has been an unbelievably long time since we have released an episode, and I'm able to tell you that now because I'm recording this episode just before it's being uploaded, unlike the next 5 episodes, which were all pre-recorded long ago. So I'm very sorry for the extremely long wait. It's been about 2.5 months now since we've uploaded because of exams and many other things. But the point is, we're catching up now, and so things are getting taken care of. So for today, it's going to be pretty quick here. And as for why I'm only audio here, you're going to hear that in just a moment. This is the first lore video we're doing, taken after the lore, or Lore in a Minute, channel on YouTube, which basically picks a video game every week, usually a video game, sometimes things related to video games, and very quickly speaking, with animation over top of it, we'll explain the background story behind a given video game series in 1 minute or about a minute. And I really love this idea, and because we have some really complicated places and characters and story arcs in Odyssey, I wanted to adapt this idea, and so today we are coming to you with the first lore video featuring John Avery Whittaker. And we will start right now. Born October 1st, approximately 1922, to Harold Whittaker in Aberdeen, Scotland, John Avery Whittaker had a life which was tragic from the start. His mother passed away at about the age of 5, and his father remarried to Fiona Donnerell. Afterwards, they moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, so that Harold could teach at Duke University. It was during this time that Fiona was blinded in a horse-riding accident when she ran into a tree branch. She eventually led Whit to God as a result of her accident, and the relationship between Whit and Fiona became much closer than it had been since Whit's mother died. It is presumable, sometime after this, that Harold and Fiona had another daughter who once ran away after an argument with Whit, and nearly died in the wilderness before being found. Whit also has a cousin named Evelyn, but it's unknown on which side of the family she's from. Whit was best friends with Jack Allen as a young boy, and when Whit was 10, he and Jack created lists of everything they wanted to do with their lives. For Whit, one of these dreams included learning to be a pilot, as well as writing for National Geographic. One summer, Jack joined Whit in his annual vacation to Bath, North Carolina, where Whit's Uncle Randy was the town sheriff. Whit and Jack discovered a cave in the bay in which they discovered a number of gold Spanish doubloons. They went on to sell all but one of the doubloons to a museum and use the money to pay their way through university. Whit planned to intern as a writer for National Geographic as a young man, but his dreams were put on hold when he was drafted into the U.S. Navy for World War II. He became a signalman and was assigned to the USS Iron Gate. His first mission involved rescuing Lieutenant Reginald Duffield from Manitogo Point under the nose of the Japanese. He later fought with Duffield in the Battle for Guadalcanal, and after saving the lives of his entire transport, including Duffield, Whit suffered severe injury from an explosion and lost the top of his right ear. After the war, Whit attended the University of South Carolina studying philosophy and literature to become a writer. While studying, he wrote a screenplay for a documentary on David Livingstone that nearly went big, but his meeting with the producer had to be cancelled so that Whit could accept a full-ride scholarship for the university, and the screenplay became another lost dream. He eventually met a girl named Guinevere Morrow at the Pasadena Public Library, who he immediately fell for. She, however, turned out to be dating Jack, who was attending the University of California, Los Angeles at the time. After a falling out that nearly destroyed their friendship, Whit and Jenny ended up together with Jack's blessing. After marrying Jenny, Whit was about to get his pilot's license when Jenny became pregnant, and they eventually had 3 children, Jerry, Jana, and Jason. Interspersed with this, at some point Whit founded the Universal Press Foundation. This included the creation of the Universal Encyclopedia. Whether for the original printing or for subsequent editions, Whit was often collecting specimens and research for the encyclopedias throughout the childhoods of his children. As his children grew up and UPF was beginning, Whit was often disheartened in his parenting, as he wasn't able to provide for his family as much as he wished. Sometime early on during the writing of the Universal Encyclopedias, it likely happened that Whit traveled to the small European country of Moldavia, where he became ensnared in a political caper after discovering he was identical to the crowned prince. In the end, he was officially crowned King of Moldavia in the prince's place while he was indisposed. At some point, Whit was also an active agent for the Department of Defense, and later on, during his time with UPF, he was often used as a consultant for computer programming by the Department of Defense. Among his consulting projects was one very long-term project he headed called Applesauce. Whitt also had training as an archaeologist and made something of himself in that community at some point in his illustrious career, such that he knew and was known to Dalton Kern, who was the archaeologist of the year at one point. Jerry, Whitt's eldest son, joined the army to fight in Vietnam and was killed in action on November 12, 1971. This drastically affected Whitt, and as Jason was only a few years short of draft age, Whitt began to focus on spending more time with him, and his relationship with Jana began to subtly suffer more and more. After Jerry died, Whitt and his family moved from Chicago to the tiny town of Odyssey for a quieter life. While Whitt remained the CEO and head of the board of UPF, he became an English teacher at McCallum Junior High in Odyssey for 14 years and even won a teaching award. He also taught part-time at Odyssey High. On top of all this, he also taught Sunday school at Odyssey Community Church. Eventually, Jason moved out to work for the National Security Agency, and Jana married Phil Dowd, had children Jenny and Monty, and moved to LA working at a bank. Jenny became very involved in political causes in Odyssey, including the saving of the Fillmore Recreation Center. While Whitt didn't agree with the saving of the building, he supported Jenny through it. Whitt was already retired from teaching by this point. Jenny, however, caught strep throat during this time, and the night of the final Odyssey City Council vote on what to do with the building, Jenny collapsed and died later that night due to the strep infection complicating into chronic glomerulonephritis. The vote for the Fillmore was postponed for 1 month out of respect for Jenny's death. During this time, Jack, who was running an orphanage in Nebraska, brought Whitt to visit him. Jack tried to bring Whitt together with a young orphan named Clara, in the hopes that a friendship between them would help Whitt move past his loss of Jenny and Clara to move past the loss of her parents. Because Jack neglected to mention to Whitt that Clara had already been chosen for adoption, Whitt decided that he was going to adopt Clara. When he found out, although he still let Clara leave with the Portlands, her new parents, he was terribly outraged at how Jack had manipulated him, and left Nebraska stating that he wasn't sure he ever wanted to speak to Jack again. After returning to Odyssey, Tom Riley and Officer David Harley visited Whitt and planted the seed which convinced him to save the Fillmore. This was the beginning of Whitt's close friendship with Tom. Whitt purchased the Fillmore for $3.5 million on behalf of UPF, beating out the Webster Development Firm's bid of $3 million. Whitt believed that he had purchased both the building and land, but he later discovered that he had purchased the building only, as the land was a part of McAllister Park, preventing the land from being sold by the city according to the terms of the original donation of the land to the city of Odyssey from the McAllister family. Whitt opened Whitt's End in the old Fillmore, making it into the place Jenny had wanted to see it become before its passing. It turned out that there was a very peculiar mineral in the tunnels under the building which helped Whitt work with some of his research and inventions. He was likely still working on applesauce at this point. He also had a secret computer room installed off of his office upon moving into the building. Whitt eventually hired a boy named Jimmy to work there, and Tom also helped occasionally. 4 years passed by before Adventures in Odyssey began. Whitt soon hired Connie Kendall to help with the shop, and quickly took a very personal interest in her. She became a Christian just as Eugene Meltzner also started working at Whitt's End. Whitt installed applesauce and the computer in a secret computer room, along with an advanced virtual intelligence and a master log program to control and keep track of everything in Whitt's End for demographic research on the displays and inventions. At some point during this time, Whitt worked together with Jason's friend Tasha Forbes on a top-secret project to develop a compound named TA-418. This compound was used to turn the disease Ruku into a supervirus. Whitt was able to contribute by the key use of the mineral under Whitt's End, as well as the incredible computing power of applesauce. When Whitt showed Eugene the computer room, Connie found out and accidentally activated applesauce, leading to both Eugene and Connie being fired from Whitt's End. They were rehired later on after Whitt's first known personal encounter with Dr. Regis Blackard. Whitt deleted applesauce after the incident, fearing the implications it would mean for the world. He still continued to do work for the Department of Defense. Whitt eventually left Odyssey for Israel to take over the Aharoni dig near Jerusalem. The dig was sponsored by UPF, and when Dr. Baines, the head of the project, passed away, it was going to be shut down if someone didn't take over, so Whitt decided to leave Odyssey for a while. On the day that Whitt left, Jack arrived in Odyssey, having come to reconcile his relationship with Whitt after the Clara incident. After spending a while in Israel, Whitt discovered a Gnostic gospel claiming to have been written by Judas Iscariot at his secret dig. The parchment claims that Jesus never resurrected and gives directions to the bones of Jesus. Originally believing that the document could be the Q parchment, the source document for the 4 Gospels, Whitt contacted the Israeli government. In conjunction with the NSA, the Israelis concocted a plan to draw out the 2 biggest artifact smuggling organizations in Israel, the Symposium and First Things, using Whitt and the Q document as bait. When Whit sent a cryptic message back to Odyssey, Jason and Eugene traveled to Israel to help, and Whit emerged from hiding to reunite with his son and Eugene for the first time in a very long while. Whit and company lured and exposed the smugglers while proving the document to be an ancient hoax. Whit finally returned to Odyssey and reconciled with Jack about Clara's adoption. Whit was pressured by the UPF board to continue missions work long-term, but sent missionary Dan Ysidro instead. Not long thereafter, Whit met businesswoman Margaret Fay and began to date her, but turned down her marriage proposal due to the discrepancies in their faiths. This later created tension between them when Margaret became mayor of Odyssey. In the Novacom saga, Whit teamed up with Mary's Story Shop to build a second Whit's End in Connellsville. This turned out to be a scheme by Andromeda to get their hands on the Imagination Station to use as hardware for Operation Think Tank. They later succeeded in stealing the device. Much later on, when Eugene returned to Odyssey, the NIH sought Whit's help in using the Imagination Station, along with Eugene's research for Andromeda, to restore his memory. When the Health and Safety Inspector visited Whit's End during Odyssey's run in the Best Small Town competition, it was discovered that the repairs made to Whit's End's foundational structure after Blackard's bomb in the tunnel were regressing, and the building was condemned until it could be repaired. During this time, it was discovered that Whit's End couldn't operate under religious principles on government property, and the shop was nearly closed indefinitely. Eventually, through legal wranglings, Eleanor McAllister sold McAllister Park to Whit on behalf of UPF for the sum total of $1. After turning a list of his young dreams into an Imagination Station adventure, Emily Jones is able to convince Whit to take up flying lessons, an idea he abandoned long before when Jerry was conceived. Alright, there we go. So, as you guys kind of notice, it's sort of similar, this lore-style video, to the Beginner's Guide of Odyssey, except we're focusing on one single topic and fleshing it out a heck of a lot more. So it's really, like the Beginner's Guide to Odyssey, more of a reference video than it is more, something to listen to for entertainment, but still, they're good to do, and it is good to be done with that. Now we can hopefully start pumping out all these videos, which we've pre-recorded so long ago, and start to get caught up on things where we are now. So, next week is going to be, next week, I say, in the theoretical realm where I did this back in October. Next week is going to be the review of the season finale for season 57, the pilot, parts 1 and 2, and Victoria and I will be reviewing over the entire season as a whole, album 57, A Call to Something More, and giving our overall thoughts on the entire season. So, please tune in next week. I have been Devin. Thank you for joining me on my side of the YouTube. Thank you, and good night, or afternoon, or morning, as the case may be. The vote for the Fillmore was postponed for one month out of